Well, good morning from chilly Seattle here. This is Patrick at Qdabra, and I want to thank you for joining us today. Today's topic is 2017, what we have planned for the year. We're also going to talk about what we did in 2016, and we're going to talk about a little bit further forward, look at some ideas for 2020, what to expect. We've been doing this for about as long as Infopath has been out there. We started the company in 2003, and so we've been very happy to continue working with forms and with you and with everyone in the SharePoint world. We're not just about forms anymore, but that's our main focus. So today's agenda is as you see. We're looking at last year's highlights first. We'll be showing a few demos for the current quarter. We're looking at doing a couple updates on some products, showing you how to do querying of databases from the web designer and the admin tool for DBExcel and some other things. And then I'll be looking at, for the year, the calendar year, what we're trying to get accomplished. The main goal of this is to give you an informational appreciation, I guess information about what Qdabra is doing this year, this quarter, and for the next few years to help you. And if you don't see something here, we have a survey at the end, a very short three-question survey today for you to fill out, and you can tell us, here's what I want you guys to do, and we can add it to our list. We're doing our kickoff today. We're also doing a kickoff next week internally, so we're trying to get that list of items, important items for you, the customer, figured out. And we'll also be talking a little bit about some ideas for the future. So what happened last year? We actually shipped 5 versions of Forms Viewer, which is our replacement for Infopath. It extends Infopath. It takes your existing forms, so there's no migration cost to you. The license is free unless you're using the cloud-based version, and it's very heavy usage. And so we were really happy to get all those out to you. We've got quite a few people using Forms Viewer now, and it's more and more a viable option. If you have seen our webinars in the past, Forms Viewer not only provides a migration path that's very low cost, but it also provides new features. So you get faster performance, you get Q rules commands baked in without having to worry about sandbox, and you get, of course, these lower SharePoint costs because you don't have to have the Infopath form services. If you're interested in learning more, take a look at our website underneath Products Forms Viewer, and all of the releases are listed here. If we go over to, let's see here, where are they? Release history right there in front of my face, and you'll see all the changes we made last year and what we did and so on. There's actually some dot releases as well, but the main releases was 1.12 and then August 1.2, followed by an update 2.1 and 2.2, and then the last change was made on 1.3 at the end of the year. And you can see all of the changes. We're basically trying to update Forms Viewer every quarter, and I'll be talking in a moment about what we're doing for this quarter. We delivered about 26, actually exactly 26 webinars last year, and we're trying to do these every other week or so. Sometimes we do them every week, sometimes we skip a couple weeks. They're short 20 to 30 minute webinars trying to address your concerns. So if you've got some vexing issue, something that you're trying to work through with your form, with SharePoint, with your mobile forms, whatever it may be, we are here to provide a quick kind of a tutorial to lead you to other and samples to lead you to a solution. So those webinars are all on our website as well. If you go to the main homepage and you take a look at down below past webinars, you'll see that we've got a list from many years back, and you can look at these. You can download the packages. One thing that we did recently, in fact, as of January 1st, the downloads are all free. So we're not charging $29 anymore for some of the downloads. And when there isn't a download link, that means that we didn't really have any samples to give you at that time. So that's the webinar package. We're a weekly webinar. We're actually going to be doing about 26 or 30 or so this year. and we're going to have a kind of a question in the survey as well about what do you want us to, what's the thing that we can talk about that will help you the most this year. I'll do a quick preview of next week's webinar as well. We're going to be doing the mobile forms. We did insert this webinar and push that one out 1 week, and I apologize if you were expecting this to be the mobile webinar. We are doing that next week, talking about techniques for mobile forms, and specifically how to use Formotus to take your forms as is and use them on your iPhones and your iPads and your Android devices and all that. We just figured that it would be good to give you a kind of a kickoff webinar this year to kind of tell you what we were doing. We're also looking at shipping another version of, actually last year we shipped 3.1 of DBXL, and we included a web-based version of the admin tool. It's a major change away from Infopath Filler. We've been shipping the DBXL tool, which is the database accelerator. It's a web service that allows you to connect to SQL. It also generates PDFs, does a lot more. There's workflow, there's a lot of different functionality in it. But the main goal here is to map your XML data to SQL, and it was the first accelerator that we built back in 2004. It has been widely adopted by all kinds of companies, including Microsoft and Intel and others. And we're doing updates. We're continuing to do updates, continuing to use it. I'll talk more about how we integrate with other tools and products in a moment. And we shipped QRules. So we shipped a QRules version that has improvements to the injector and bug fixes. It's not a huge change to QRules. And once again, if you're interested in looking at what happened, you go up to our product page and take a look at the release history, and you'll see that we updated DBXL on October 27th, and there's a video. In addition, you can look at QRules, and you can see that we updated this more recently to December of last year, and you can see what changed, what was updated. So quite a few commands were updated, bug fixes and whatnot. So if you don't have the latest version of those tools, please contact us. If you have a license, it's a great time to upgrade. If you need to renew your license, please let us know, and we're here to help. So back to the presentation. So today, I also want to talk about what our focus is for Q1. We're focused on improving Forms Viewer in Q1. We're trying to finish out a few of the features that are missing. The biggest one is validation. We don't right now have a way to do validation rules in Forms Viewer. There's a workaround. You can actually add formatting. So you can add formatting with red or with highlight or whatever, saying if it's not equal to this value, please show the highlight or show a message. So it's easy to work around this, but it does require some work. And we're going to be looking at providing logic, using the logic in Infopath as is, to provide that validation logic. And if you're wondering what I'm talking about, let's just take a look at a form in the designer here for a second. So here's a sample form. I'm going to show this form in a moment. We're really talking about, like let's say you had validation logic over here on the right where you have the rules. If you have a field that's not from a secondary data source, like let's say you just add a field in here from your main data source, and this form doesn't have any fields because this is a really simple demo, but let's say we had a field here and we want to validate it. We would add a rule for validation, and you can add, of course, custom formatting, custom, for example, you can do a, you can say, well, if it's equal to a pattern, and then you get this wonderful dialogue that gives you pattern matching abilities. There's lots of really cool techniques with validation that we currently don't support in Forms Viewer, and that's really what we're trying to do this quarter. That's the main feature add, is to add that validation support. We're also going to be looking at doing a glass signature control. Have quite a few customers interested in signing with their fingers on mobile devices, and of course Forms Viewer is a browser-based tool, so it's basically a client-side app that displays your Infopath forms in the browser. You can use it as a replacement, an extension to Infopath. It's faster. It has more features than Infopath, and it is free. You can, and we're adding functionality like the signature control, which doesn't exist in Infopath, and basically we'll have a separate control that you use to sign forms with your finger. We have already electronic signature, pin-based signature in Infopath, and we use that a lot with forms here and with other forms, but this is really about signing with your fingers, so it's kind of like what you're used to when you go to the coffee shop and you pay for your coffee by just signing on an iPad or something. It's that kind of a control. Font sizing and formatting, we've got a bunch of things we're trying to fix. We actually tried to get the font sizing fix done last release, 1.3. We weren't able to at the end. We weren't able to finish the testing cycle. So we're very close on that. We should have that out. So if you're seeing weird issues with fonts not, displaying the right size, those will be fixed in a few months, in 1 or 2 months hopefully. And this is all based on the end of Q1, so that's the end of March. We are going to be delivering webinars this quarter as well. Obviously, tell us what you want. Next week's webinar is on the mobile forms, like I said. We're also trying to get a dot release out for DBXL. There are some bug fixes for the web admin tool, some minor things. They're not blocking. We're trying to, there is an error reporting page that we fixed a bug on that. Actually, I'm going to be showing you these new features here in a second. In fact, let's talk about them right now. So one of the tools we have that we don't talk about a lot is the XLS XML tool. If you go to our web page, it's underneath Tools. If you go to Tools, you can see here we've got this Excel to Infopath migration here. And this tool has been around for quite a while. It's actually been updated recently, but it's not something that we sell a lot of. I mean, we've probably sold a couple hundred copies, I don't know, not much. The main purpose of this tool is to allow you to create XML documents, or basically to take your existing spreadsheet and convert it over to using forms. So let me show you an example here. So let's say you have a spreadsheet. Here's a simple spreadsheet. And you have all this data in your different worksheet in the spreadsheet. So the spreadsheet has a bunch of worksheets, and you can see these tabs here down below. I want to import this data as a bunch of expense reports into my existing SharePoint library. So I have an expense report form, and I have all this old data from before that I want to import, right? So how do I do that? So you can use this tool to take an existing spreadsheet, and you have to define a mapping, and then you can map it into your Infopath forms. So how do you do that? Today, the tool uses Infopath Filler. There's a form that you fill out to just describe the mapping from the spreadsheet into the Infopath form. And then there's a command line tool that you run that automatically, iterates over all of your rows, generating forms based on your mapping. So it's fairly complicated. You can read about it on our web page here. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but I want to show you that we have this tool now in the DBXL admin tool. So here's our DBXL admin tool main control page, and if you go into one of the documents, so let's say, for example, this is our test site. We have lots and lots of documents. One of them is called QD Expense Report Sample. This is the default doc type that we ship when you install the tool. So you'll see this with your DBXL admin tool. And if we go into this and look at the Documents tab, we'll take a look here, and I'm just going to actually show you all the documents here. There's only about 108. And if we look down at the bottom, you can see these 3 documents here are from that Excel spreadsheet. And specifically, if I opened one, and I've got one already open, I think, you'll see that data coming in from the 4th tab. So I look at the 4th tab in the spreadsheet again. Items has, those last 2 items there are for 112-20173. So there's an expense report there that we're mapping arbitrarily multiple worksheet data. So depending on the schema for the form, you can actually have any number of parent-child relationships. And here we just have one. We just have the expense report and then these 3 children, the employee, the manager, and the items is repeating. So that data is actually getting mapped into the XML, and you can see here this is an Infopath form. We could have opened this in the browser, and it fills it in automatically. Now, what we're doing in DBXL to enable this feature is, you can do it today with the tool, but we're actually adding this import tab that allows you to specify the mapping in the browser. So this isn't filled out yet, and there's a few features that are missing, but let me just show you what it looks like when it is filled out. We've got a screenshot, and so this is the same screen with the data for that spreadsheet, and you can see here that we've specified the spreadsheet file, we've specified the mapping and the child mapping for those 3 different children, right? And then we run it, and it automatically takes that XLS file and generates those forms. So this is an improvement over the XLS to XML tool. Why is it an improvement? Well, there's a few things that we don't have to worry about because it's in DBXL now, it's in the admin tool. We don't have to worry about specifying how to submit to DBXL. It automatically will submit those documents in to the doc type that you specified. So that's one of the improvements that we're making in Q1, and it's based on customer feedback. So we had one customer, thank you Mark, who wanted this feature to be more automated, and we thought it was a good idea, and so we just did it. So that's one feature for DBXL that we're doing. We're also going to be taking the QueryDB tool, which is yet another tool that has been outside of DBXL. Let me just explain what QueryDB is. QueryDB allows you to create a query string that would automatically give you some of the database. Like you want to query your database, right? QueryDB allows you to build a generic query string that allows you to query any table in the database. So rather than use separate hard-coded queries for every single query, we build these generic queries based on this tool. And the tool is actually, you can run it from the DBXL admin tool. Here's an example of what it looks like in the filler. So when you launch the tool, you're going to get this form. And you fill it out, you put in your DBXL URL and your database and all that stuff, and then you create your queries. And then these queries get essentially copied into your form. And the way you do it is you have a form. I think we have this open. Maybe we don't have this open in the preview yet. So you have your sample form here, and this form you put in the query XML, and then you query it, and it's going to query the database, and it's going to give you back all the rows that match. So for example, if we made it, if we change the value here, and of course this is read-only, so I need to change this text to make it so I can actually change the value. We'll just take it out of its multi-line format. It's going to be a little bit hard to see, but that's kind of weird. We must have a rule on load here. I just got this from one of my testers this morning, so I'm not quite sure how he's setting this up on load. Looks like he's not setting it up on load, so how is he setting it? It's probably coming from the, anyway, if when you're creating a query for database, you're typically going to create a data connection to this what we call the QueryDB.asmx web service, and this web service is running in DBXL. And when you create this, it's going to ask you for a query XML, which is what you get from the QueryDB tool, right? So here's our query XML. Let's copy it out for now so you can see it in a second here. And the benefit is that you have one web method that you're using to do all your queries. So you don't have to have a hard-coded web method or a hard-coded data connection. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just preview this again now that I have the string. And if I change this value, first of all, if I use it with the 12, you'll see that I'm getting those values back. If I put in the something else, like say 10, I don't expect, well, I guess there's one value there that's testing it. So once again, this is querying the database live, and it's using that generic XML string that we get from the QueryDB tool. So what you do is typically you go into the QueryDB tool, you create your query with your filters, the columns you want to return, how you want to be sorted, and then you take the query strings that the tool generates and you paste them into your form so they can query the database. And this is a very common, you can make it data-driven, so it can be based on a dynamic value in your form. So what we've done now in 3.2, which has not been released yet, is we've actually added this tool into the web version of DBXL Admin Tool. So here's the tool, and of course you have to specify all of the strings. So I've got an example here for you, and I believe it's right here. So this is an example of the data being filled out that does that query for that report equal to 112. It's the one I just showed and the sample I just showed, and I'll include this screenshot along with the sample in the package if you're interested in looking at this further. So the web-based version now is going to generate that. The benefit to you, don't have to worry about having Infopath Filler installed to generate these queries. And this page will also save the queries. You don't see that right now, but we're going to add that feature before we release it, so that you can save all your queries in DBXL so you don't have to worry about where they are. So it will help improve the organization of your queries. And of course you can take existing queries and you can copy them and create new queries. So it helps you manage and organize your queries. And that's the second major change that we're making to DBXL in this Q1. Okay, we're making a couple updates to PDF generation quality as well. We've got a new utility library that we're including that has slightly better quality and output. The PDF generation quality already is very, very good. It's much better than the competitors out there. In addition, we're making a few minor bug fixes. And then we're launching a new Qdabra.com website. So our Qdabra.com site is a bit old. It hasn't been updated for 3 or 4 years. So we're moving it to a modern design built on Zerb. Okay, so what about the rest of the year? If you've got questions, please go ahead and add comments. And I'll be answering the questions at the end here in a few minutes. We're almost done. For the end of the year, we are going to be releasing hopefully at least 4 versions of Forms here. So I talked about 2.1. 2.2, we've actually got a designer that we're integrating now. We're going to be building a Forms designer into the browser version of Forms Viewer so that you can actually edit your existing templates right there in SharePoint. You just go into Forms Viewer app, you go into Manage Templates, and you just click on the template and you click Edit. And it will then bring up a browser version of the editing for the view, the data source, the data connections, and the rules. So those 4 things are going to be editable hopefully by the end of Q2. And this is going to give you a replacement for Infopath Designer. We're really excited about this. We are, of course, requiring that it be an existing template. So you won't be able to create a template from scratch in the first version of this. But we will be releasing other versions towards the end of the year and probably next year that have the ability to create new templates. But for now, it's just going to be the existing templates. But this will give you a backup just in case there's a break in the Infopath Forms Designer or you can't use it for some reason. We will have a backup for you. Now today, your backup is to manually, take the XSN, uncab it, go in and manually modify it, which is very, very difficult to do, and it's very easy to break the form. So we're going to be making that a web-based UI so you can easily update it. And it'll be similar in many ways to the Infopath Designer, but it'll be web-based. I'm excited about the Forms Designer project. We have a Forms board site, which some of you may be familiar with, and this has been around since 2007, 2008. The Forms board site is not a replacement for SharePoint. Instead, it's a backup for you, for those customers who do not want to necessarily pay the cost of SharePoint just for forms. So SharePoint has a tremendous number of features, including forms, but if you're just interested in forms and you don't want to to pay a licensing fee for every user in your organization to share those forms. You can use Forms Board to do that. We use Forms Board here at Qdabra. We've been using it for many, many years to manage our business. And you can see that each one of these icons represents a form. We've got a form for customer contact and support and so on. You can organize these. I've got them all organized in my Qdabra domain, but you could split this out into HR domain and accounting domain and things like that. And then you'd have a place for people to submit forms. Each form opens in Infopath. You can open the forms in the browser. And this functionality is what we're trying to improve this year, because this functionality, as you can see, is in the old Forms viewer, which provides this task pane here on the right for assignments, workflow task pane. We'll keep that, but you can see here that the form in the main view here, I hope Lincoln doesn't mind us using their company information, but it has a couple of weird artifacts. The date time stamps aren't correctly formatted, and there's a weird tabbing here. So what we're doing with Forms Board this year is we're going to be baking in the fully rich Forms viewer experience there. So for those users who want to share forms, they don't want to necessarily pay for per user licensing, the client access licenses per user, that might be a good option for you. Forms Board is not free, but it's very, very inexpensive. So it's something that you might consider. The trial is free, and there's really no limit right now on it. So in effect, it is free. But if you start using it heavily, then we will ping you, and the pricing is on the web page. But it's very inexpensive. It's like I think it's $3 or $4 a user per month at the lower price point. But you can even bring that down if you have more users. So that's 2.3 for Forms Viewer, is the integration with Forms Board. Now, we are a Formotus partner, and we recommend Formotus for mobile forms. Formotus is a great solution because it allows you to take your Infopath forms as is and display them, download them to your browser. Download them to your Ridge Client app on your phone or on your tablet device. And Formotus has been around for a long, long time, and they have a rich set of features for mobile. It's really a great solution for those customers who need to be offline and need those rich controls. The controls I'm talking about are things like the ability to draw on images. You take a picture, you can draw an image to highlight some area of focus. Also the ability to capture signatures, of course. Oops, I went too far here. And the ability to, of course, keep the forms offline. Now, what we're doing with Forms Viewer is not even close to that. We're actually adding some mobile features because we've been asked from our customers. But Forms Viewer is a browser solution, so people have to be online to use it. We are adding a feature to do temporary caching if people lose connectivity for less than 30 minutes. And we are also adding the ability to take a picture, and we may add the ability to capture GPS coordinations from the web. But these all require that you be accessing the web, or that you be at least opening the form while you're accessing the web. The GPS coords, that won't work unless you're on the web. It's going to be using web-based UIs, web-based APIs to get the information. Camera capture, of course, it will capture the image, but you'll have to submit it within that 30-minute window to get it uploaded. So it truly does not overlap with the wonderful support that Formotus offers, but it is an option for you if you're using Forms Viewer. You'll be able to take the Forms Viewer forms and do a little bit more with them on your mobile devices. So that's it for Forms Viewer. We are also planning, of course, on delivering another 25 to 30 tutorials on hot topics, anything that you recommend, and stuff that we see on a daily basis among our consulting projects. We normally have about 40 consulting projects running at any given time. And so we usually take the tidbits and the techniques that people are asking us about during those projects, and we highlight them in our weekly webinar. And now, as of January 1st, like I said earlier, all of the webinar content is free. The DBXL release, I already mentioned what we're doing there this quarter. We probably will not have a big release by the end of the year, but we are integrating DBXL into Forms Viewer backend, so you'll have a one install point. You won't have to install both DBXL and Forms Viewer QFS for on-prem people. Obviously, if you're in the cloud, if you're using 365, you don't need to worry about installing Forms Viewer, but just the app. But if you're using on-prem, there's a server-side piece that does some communication between the app and the site. It handles the authentication back and forth and that kind of a thing. And that server-side piece is typically installed on-prem. So for those customers that use on-prem Forms Viewer, we will be packaging DBXL with it to make it a single install. So that's a major release point. And we haven't put a version number on it, but we'll probably be calling it 3.3. And then finally, we're going to be revamping our forum to bring it up to date. It's 10 years old. We need to migrate all the data over. We have lots of people using the forum still, and so we need to make that a useful. We need to refresh it so it's not quite so creaky. Here are some ideas for 2020. This is in 3 years out. There's three kind of themes here. One is this suite. So we're actually combining all of these accelerators, these tools that we use on our projects. And we're not about making money off of our products. We're about using these accelerators to reduce the cost of consulting projects. Our business is consulting services. It's helping you build solutions that are low cost, highly performant, scalable, extensible, easy to maintain. And we're very minimal, virtual company that does not require a lot of, our goal is really not, the capitalistic goal of make it or break it, IPO and we're out. That's not our goal. Our goal is to be here serving you for many, many years, hopefully until we decide not to work anymore, and then of course somebody else has the reins. And to continue doing work, solving your problems. And so we have built these products over the years mainly as a way to accelerate and reduce costs for you. And we are looking at pulling all these products together into one suite. And that's going to be happening hopefully over the next year. You can already see some hints of it with the integration with FormsBoard, the integration with DBXL. But we'll be doing more of that, like the Xml Tool is now part of DBXL. The tools, we're building those in. The migration tool will probably be a part of the integration suite too, until I migrate from one site to another. So that's one theme. Another theme is this online repository of shared pieces of forms and form templates. So if you use Forms Viewer, then you'll have the option of publishing forms to be publicly viewable. And we haven't quite figured out how we're going to do this. This is a 2020 vision. We want to do it. We don't store your forms on the server, so your forms exist on your SharePoint site, and we don't have a way of kind of consolidating them all across the Forms Viewer installations. But we do probably want to provide some way for if you mark a form as public, or when you upload it, it'll automatically send it to a public repository that can be where it can be reused from other people. And a lot of people won't want to do that, but there will be a template repository as well, a template parts repository. In Infopath today, you can use XML template parts to create reusable sections between forms. And we've talked about this in our training from time to time. We'll be, of course, we will be seeding this repository with all the stuff that we use in our training and among our projects. So there will be a common framework there, a controls framework as well as a template parts framework for you to reuse. But we do hope also that there's a community aspect of it, that people start reusing pieces of their forms or complete form templates, and that there's some sharing that happens among the Forms Viewer customers. So that's another theme, is this online sharing of forms to make it easy to design new forms by reusing other people's good work. So the final theme is this notion of mining data to provide quick automatic suggestions to pre-fill the form. You see this today with we use LastPass as a password mechanism for auto-populating things, for example, addresses, address blocks, and things like that. And so you see this little icon that shows up in the address block. You click on it, and if you're authenticated, it automatically fills in everything. But it only works for a couple known formats of templates, addresses and passwords and things like that. What we're looking at doing longer term is looking at kind of the patterns of schemas that are out there. Everyone's using data in your solution. You've got data source, you've got schemas based on your sections, you've got schemas based on your forms, and all of these schemas out in the world, they have commonality. So they correlate with one another. Usually, in the XML schema or the JSON schema, you have a name for something. Those names have the meaning of that field. So we'll be actually looking at all of these different schemas out there and finding commonality among them, and then inferring what the fill-in should be based on previous entries that you've made. It will be limited to your site probably, and not so you won't have to worry about some strange data flying in from some other site. But it's kind of like how that Google autocomplete works. The Google autocomplete uses AI today to fill in what your search should be. Ours will be more structured. It'll be automatically filling in a set number of fields based on it, and there'll be an option, of course, to accept or deny it. It'll pop up, and of course you'll have to have the option set to allow for suggestions. But we'll be using input that's captured, and obviously that we haven't figured out how we're going to do that because a lot of this data is private, but it's just an idea for now. It's just a random idea. We're trying to think of ways to reduce the amount of time it takes to fill out forms and to design them, and so we've come up with those two random ideas. I'm not saying that any of this stuff will happen here at the end here, this AI stuff. I'm pretty sure that the first one, the suite, will happen. The second one is less so, probably a 50-50 there, depending on how we can structure it. And the last one is just totally pie in the sky for now. So here's our obligatory ad. If you haven't looked at FormsViewer, it is a path forward for your forms. It protects you against any issues with Infopath support from Microsoft. It's free. I mean, if you want to pay us for support, we appreciate it, but the licensing cost is essentially free. If you're a heavy user of FormsViewer, like I said earlier, we do have a very small fee a month per site. It's not per user, it's per site, but otherwise it's free, and we just charge for support if you need it. We've been adding new features to FormsViewer, of course, and it's very viable right now. There's lots of people using it, and we'd love to have you as a customer. Take a look at our Qdabra.com FormsViewer sites underneath products, FormsViewer, and you can learn more. And this is a re-recording. I lost the last 10 minutes of the video because my other computer went offline. So the questions that were asked are not going to show up here, but apologize. But if you got this far in the webinar recording, thank you very much for listening. You can always ask us questions at support@qdabra.com. Just send an email to support@qdabra.com. Next week we're looking at form tips for mobile devices, and we'll be focusing on Formotus and what we've learned over the years developing solutions that incorporate the rich Formotus app on the mobile device. We look forward to having you there, and hope you have a great day. Thank you very much.